I see Chris, I see,
Kim is there.
okay. But we have, we need Ronaldo and Sarah.
I don't know if I need to be promoted. Wait, I don't see a little thing for me to show my camera.
That's the problem I was having this morning. I left.
Yeah,
I
But
did
it-
promote you. Let me do it again.
Well, yeah, okay.
we can hear you.
There's Ronaldo.
All
There
right,
she is. And where's Miss Kim?
I'm here.
She's
No,
there.
not, God,
There.
I don't know what that is. To me. and I
We need more
apologize.
interesting names. Kim and Sarah are kind of like,
They're nothing alike. Malega is nothing like Stokes. I just don't know where that came from and I apologize. It's the COVID. It's the COVID.
Okay,
Sarah's
Commissioner
one.
Maliga is
There she
here.
is. Okay, perfect.
There we go.
So Madam Mayor, I'll talk really slow. It's 9:02 and we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the pre-agenda meeting of June 30th. Is that today, 30th? Time marches on.
29th.
Hi, Good morning, Sarah. Welcome to the pre-agenda meeting that we have, and I think it's such a great idea that we had. So I can only stay on for about 15 minutes. Well, I had a question, Sarah. Tomorrow at your District 1 meeting at the Osborne Center, is that a noticed public hearing meeting?
It's a noticed public forum. It is not an agenda set. We're not going to have Zoom. There will not be YouTube. But
Right.
it's an open public forum with all of us. It has been noticed.
Okay,
I
I
have
just want to
made,
make sure we could go and talk. That was
yes,
my-
and I've made sure that the NAPC has sent out the flyer. On the flyer, we made sure that it said all residents and business owners of the city are welcome, not
Okay.
just District 1.
Right,
And there's a couple things that I'm going to have Sylvina print out so we can take with us for informational purposes, like the new self program that we're promoting, the information for the free air conditioning assistance through the county. There's some stuff that I'm going to make sure that we have on hand as well.
are windows still being done for senior poor people by the county? Do we know?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, to be official, may I call the roll?
I don't, yes, you may.
Thank you. Mayor Betty Resch,
Here,
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga,
Present.
Commissioner
Oh, there.
Kimberly Stokes,
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Thank you.
we never know with Sarah what she's gonna say.
Well, I follow Chris. If Chris says
I know,
present,
last night
I go
was
here.
Last night was good, I noticed that. Okay, good meeting last night, got a lot of work done. I'm sure this morning there are some, reactions within the city about who got on and who didn't, but we're just move on and have good turnout. So I'm gonna just get started. Let's just go by district today. Let's start with one. Sarah, do you want to start?
Yeah, the only thing I have is that there is some good legislation that was passed by the governor and signed into law. And that is the fact that municipalities can now pass an ordinance banning cigarette smoking from beaches and parks. And I would like consensus for us to move forward with that as soon as possible.
I think that's a great idea. Who enforces it?
Well, that's what we have to find out. It's a municipality ordinance. It will be something that, legal's going to have to obviously take the reins on. And the only thing it does not ban is you cannot include cigar smoke.
Cigar smoke, because
Which
they
is
have a very
crazy.
strong cigar lobby apparently.
Yes,
It's
they,
the
apparently
product of all the
somebody up there
smoke.
owns a cigar company apparently. So, but I would just like consensus for legal to start working on what that's going to look like. And if it's enforceable by PBSO, the lifeguards at the beach, and all the logistics that are going to go into it.
Yeah, I don't see our lifeguards being code enforcement officers, but we'll cross that
Yeah.
bridge.
That's just what I was going to say too. I'm all for it, especially not just for the smoking, but also for the trash that winds up on the beach. That's hard to clean up. But I am quite cautious that we not add more burden to the lifeguards whose focus is saving lives, not,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
I doubt
Correct.
that, I doubt that they
Correct,
do
but
that. We'll figure it out.
At the cystic fibrosis thing, like I was under the tent with the lifeguards and people were smoking literally like 4 feet from us. And they were like, really? So I think it'll be something the lifeguards can say, hey, there's no smoking. We can obviously put up signage at the beach. This is a, smoke-free beach. But we'll have to
Well,
work through logistics. I'm just excited that he
No, I
actually
think it's a
signed
good
it.
idea. Yep.
And if we can start working on it with consensus, I would be very happy.
So do we have consensus?
Yeah, I would like us to work on it with legal, and I'd also like our public works department or parks to team up and come up with a plan for signage. I notice like even places where just having a sign on the window saying masks are required, you see a lot more people wearing masks inside, maybe not 100%, but a lot more. So I think I understand the enforcement issue, but regardless if we pass this,
Oh.
I think put the signage up, we will see a reduction.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love it's going to save the wildlife. I hate seeing cigarette butts on beaches and in parks. Little kids
Oh, yeah.
pick them up when they're in the playground. They get into
Birds
turtles
eat
and
them.
birds. I mean, it's a great legislation that was passed. And I'm very excited about it.
Done.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Good start. Anybody else? Okay, anything else, Sarah?
Nope. See you all tomorrow,
What
Yep.
time is that? Is that what
6
time?
6 to 7.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and don't forget the FDOT meeting is tonight as well. If
Mhm.
anybody wants to attend from 6 to 7 at the Osmore Community Center.
That was the Lake Lucerne that some of us have seen on the webs. Okay.
Yeah, this is their outreach for FDOT.
And it's very funny because it's really not that, it's not, people think it's going to be like redoing Lake and Lucerne, and it's really not. It's about crosswalks at the high school essentially.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Maliga, it's on the calendar as 6 to 8. It's only 6 to 7?
That's what the flyer went out. So
Okay, I'll change it. No worries.
I have,
I'm sorry, there's a two-part meeting. There's
Oh.
a virtual meeting that's an hour, and then there's an in-person meeting. So it's a two-parter. Melissa, I'll send you the
Oh.
flyer.
Right.
great.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question about the 4th of July stuff that's going on. On Sunday, there's a potluck, and I'll find out, I guess, from John Faust or somebody, but it seems like they're going to have a potluck at the boat ramp. And does anybody know anything about like anything of the logistics of it at all? No, I hear dead silence. All right,
Now, who's hosting it?
the NAPC, every night there's an event. Last night, I went down to I went up to the bar last night, and but it was pretty much broken up by the time I got there. Every night this week, Carmen, it's a big deal. Every 4th of July in Lake Worth, it's gotten big. Tonight, I forget where it is. Friday night, it's at the Beach Club. And then I don't know where it is Saturday, and then Sunday is a big potluck. So I think that would be fun.
Yeah, Saturday is at the beach, Palm Beach Rag Tops,
Oh.
and Sunday potluck picnic at the boat ramps.
What time?
5 p.m. potluck.
5 p.m. That should be fun. But I mean, do you have to bring food for 100 people? I wonder. how many they're gonna-
Potluck, there's no pre-organization of potluck. That's why it's potluck. You just bring whatever
Yes,
you feel
I-
like bringing.
Been to a number of them. I'm just wondering about,
And bring,
the logistics. Are they gonna have plates
Well-
and, that kind of stuff? I'll find out. I just thought somebody might know. God, potlucks in my life, lots of them, love them. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I don't have really much today, so I'm gonna pop out. I'm gonna give it over to the vice mayor so I can get back on Zoom with Court, a little more formal. See you all tomorrow night.
you pass the gavel through the Zoom there.
My lip gloss is available.
That'll work. I'm not sure how to use one, but I'll
It's
figure it out.
colorless. It's okay. It feels good. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow night. And tomorrow night is 6 o'clock. Okay.
6 p.m.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Luck in court.
Thank you. I need.
Vice Mayor.
All
All right.
eyes on you.
Thank you. I'll do my best. I thought the meeting last night with handling the advisory board applications went very positively. I think we do need to revisit or we need to re-advertise for a few more. We certainly need a few more seats here and there, but I think on the whole, it went pretty well. And pleased that we finally have switched to the process that's much more community involved, much more welcoming to the community, a chance for them to get to know us and us to know them. So I think that was overall a success. And reiterate for anybody who might be listening, the policy forum for District 1, Commissioner Malega's district, is Thursday evening. And remind the time, it's 6 or 7.
6 to 7 or 6 to 8. I'm sorry, for tomorrow. Tomorrow is 6 to 8.
So both, and today is also 6 to 8 for the Florida Department of Transportation meeting relating to Lake and Lucerne.
Vice Mayor,
Yes,
just to add on to the events that you're mentioning today, also is the Recovery Symposium planning by the Hub, the Palm Beach County Hub. Remember, they had the listening session at the Hatch. Their second meeting is tonight from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And that will be at the Coastal Chapel in Lake Worth unincorporated area, 1510 High Ridge Road.
and let's repeat that for anybody who might be listening. Coastal Chapel, 1510 High Ridge Road.
Yes,
Probably down in Lantana area. And that's a planning session for the Hub Recovery Group.
that's correct.
Great. Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
very relevant to our community and a good thing for people to know about. I have a suggestion of something we might talk about, but let's see first if each of the districts has anything that's burning that they would like to share. So let's start with District 2 or District 1, I mean.
Nope, I'm good. I already covered mine. The only thing I want to do is see if we can make sure we get that moving with Glenn for that ordinance.
Yes, and on Tallahassee, thank you for that. Thanks for drawing that to our attention. And I'm sure that our city manager will clarify with PBSO, are they willing, will they be able to do at least occasional enforcement of that? I think spot enforcement would probably work reasonably well, and signage. And let's make sure that the signage, the beach is a very visible part of our city. Let's try to make the signage either imaginative or artistic or something that's a little more than just one more kind of gloomy government sign on it.
I agree with you. It's got to be something that's eye-catching and people pay attention to as well.
We have an artistic community. There's plenty of creativity here to come up with something. So we might ask for some designs from the community or something.
And obviously, once we do it, we can make sure that the news channels are there so they broadcast it and people know from get-go, from day one that we approve it. Have WPTV or whoever come out and be at that meeting.
Yep, good idea.
All right,
Good.
thanks. That's all I got.
Vice Mayor, I see the city manager's hand raised.
Oh, okay. You see that better than I do. My screen doesn't tell me that, or at least I don't know how. Go ahead, please.
No, my apologies. I already spoke. I did not lower my hand. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you both. And thank you to Sylvina and Melissa, the city clerk and the assistant to the commission, for all the help in working through a goodly number of boards and a goodly number of applicants. I'm sure that was a task. So thank you to that. District 3.
Hello, I have two things on my mind today. I'll just tell you what they are, and then we can dig as deep as we can in a few minutes into each one. The housing crisis, also coupled with now, I don't know if we want to call it an energy crisis, is putting a huge burden. I think it's the most important thing that we are going to be tasked with navigating while we're sitting in these chairs. We came in at the end of COVID while vaccines and things and businesses were starting to open up. This is on our plates. What we do here is going to be reflective of who we are as a board. I know we gave consensus so that, and then the advisory boards, I have some things I want to talk about. But I know we gave consensus before to look into declaring and making it official and putting on everybody's radar. We are in an emergency situation. Miami did released their report. I think FAU, I haven't had a chance to read the full article, but FAU did team up with Miami and maybe some other area just to the south of us to get their report. It's out. So we did say we were kind of wanting, you know, our city attorney and city staff to look at what Miami was doing and follow along with them and bring back recommendations for what we can do as a city. And I think I really don't want this to be something that, you know, months go by before we hear updates on how this is evolving. So
Could I get a question of consensus for those who are here? Do we have consensus that we want to expeditiously move forward with a declaration of crisis, whatever the steps are to do that? Do we have consensus to move that forward?
What does that entail? Last time we talked about it, it had to be a referendum on voting.
no, that's rent control.
Separate.
So this is just acknowledging that we are in a crisis. And when people start seeing, I would also like this so we can recognize that we're in a state of crisis, that this is a big issue that we need to be looking at, and what can we do and what can't we do. And then we can also do the report that is going to show us what I would like in the report. I'd like somebody from staff and our attorney to evaluate the report that Miami has gotten from FAU. And if we want a similar report or something else, because this report should help us inform decisions. What are going to be the downstream effects of this crisis? Because we need to prepare for those. And we have discussions around how we're going to spend our ARPA money. And I think we need to be armed with all the information we need so we can navigate this to the best of our abilities, knowing our hands are tied in certain ways. And the community needs to know, because as we most likely will see across the entire country, an uptick in crime, an uptick in homelessness, an uptick in some of these other things, it's not the result of, you know, Lake Worth doesn't have enough development, because we're going to be seeing these things in Boca, West Palm, all over the place. You know, some people think once the Gulfstream is built, it's going to solve all of our problems. Not true. We have real issues that are going to take some real thought in how we're going to tackle them. And so I think it's to me, it is the most important thing we're going to be doing during this term, is how we react to this and how we react to the things we have no control over, by knowing what's coming.
No, I completely agree with you and support you. Thank you for the clarification on it.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can get the same data from FAU?
I think so, but I think what they would do is take the same thing that they did. Now that they've done it once, they've learned, hopefully coming to Palm Beach County, to Lake Worth, they would do the same kind of thing, but use our numbers, our population, what our market's doing, and make it specific to us.
No, I completely agree with you. I was talking to Commissioner Diaz yesterday about a 2-1 that my friend just sold on South K Street literally last month, and the new owner put it up. It's 700 square feet. They put it up for $2,900 for rent. A 2-1. I'm like, are you kidding me?
This is and you know, an unpleasant thing we're going to have to face as a board, and we can do what we can, is the rising cost of energy, which is going. So not only are the rents going up, electric bills are going up, and I know this board will do everything we can to minimize what we have to pass on to consumers, but we also have to protect ourselves from bankruptcy and like making sure that we don't dig ourselves in such a great hole. We're gonna have to have those conversations. So I just think I just can't imagine a lot of us and maybe a little more insulated in our personal lives, especially if we're homeowners, but I just can't imagine trying to navigate this rent increase, and as well as your utility increase, as well as everything else increasing.
You're absolutely right. I actually had a conversation last month with Ed, with Mr. Liberty, and we talked about how many people were being disconnected and then put back on within 4 days. And I asked him to launch a program where if somebody was disconnected, the next conversation that the customer service rep does after they get their information for reconnect is, do you know we have a budget program? Can we send you the application? And I told him I'd like to do this for 90 to 120 days and see how many take advantage of being on that budget program. I said, and then let's see if we have a downtick in disconnections, because people can at least budget, they know what their bill's going to be, especially during, during this crisis where they don't know their gas bill, they don't know what their grocery bill is going to be. At least this way we can provide some consistency across the board.
And I think that's a great idea. I would add to the suggestion, let's also at the same time, and it may not apply if somebody's renting because they may not have any control over it, but some things there are educational parts. Any conservation availability that we can talk to people to just help reduce, as much that they're using, that directly reduces their bill. Do they have any options? What are things that they can do that give them control? So let's try to get both pieces of information to people.
I'm glad this was brought up because as we're obviously we're doing quite a bit of redevelopment, and this is such an important issue, and it's going to be a roller coaster ride for both sides, because we want to protect renters and homeowners, but the other side of it as well is I've been kind of keeping an eye on what housing markets are doing in other markets, and it's concerning because there are places, especially out west, maybe they're doing this a little bit earlier, whatnot, but entire markets are essentially like having the prices. Right now, obviously the house prices are through the roof, but there are a number of markets across the country that are having drastic drops in prices as a result. So it's something that we definitely need to figure out, and some data that I would love to see, because we have we approved that one project over by Boutwell that I thought was really great in terms of the rental prices they're offering. I would love to see if it's possible to even calculate this, so the numbers of what inventory is available to us right now versus what's maybe some target inventory that we should have like over the next 10 years or whatever, in order to kind of help stabilize our prices and whatnot. So I think
tiny houses.
What's that?
Like tiny houses.
Yeah, and I think we have, I still firmly believe that Lake Worth Beach, we do have a bit of a head start, if you will, or we have things that work in our favor. That we have small houses, we have the grid streets, we have a lot of these things that so many towns, it's very desirable for so many towns in terms of planning. And I think we can do a lot of good, but like Commissioner Stokes pointed out, having the data so that we can have, make better informed decisions is going to be critical. City manager and I, in our meeting, we talked about detailing out, our visioning plan for Lake Worth in terms of what is it that we envision Lake Worth to be developed. And that's something that's absolutely critical. And it needs to make sure that everything, our comp plans, our LDRs, everything is working cohesively and intentionally, because we do not want to continue on a road of kind of piecemeal, case by case approving projects. We want to make sure we are deliberate and protecting what we want to protect.
I think that's a great point, and it's sort of parallel a little bit to what we talked about with the electric utility last night, that we need an overall process of making sure that we as a commission are setting the policy of what are our goals and objectives for the community and for our land use regulation, and then make sure that whether it's the land use and zoning or whether it's the integrated resource plan, that those are consistent. Those are the roadmaps that get us to carrying out those missions and objectives. And data is then the other piece to make sure that we are developing those missions and objectives based on actual information. So a question I would have for the city manager is, are we pretty well set if the commission needs data on some of the kind of things? Are we in a pretty good position where we can request it and it can be provided back to us?
It depends on the information. We may need to engage other professionals in it. For instance, I know there's interest of looking at FAU. They do a lot of research, and so I've contacted and awaiting a return call to FAU regarding several requests that I've talked about with some commissioners regarding some data. So right now, no, in-house, depending on if that data is readily available in-house. Other than that, we will have to outsource.
And yeah, that seems reasonable, depending on how specialized it is. I think a thought that comes with that is some of this type of information that's important to us as a policy board also needs to, once we get it, to be, and periodically updated, needs to be very much available to staff too, such that staff are making decisions also based on pretty current and wide-ranging data. So not just that it's outside study, but that we make sure that we understand it as a city. Okay, where are we on rents? How many places are available? What are current prices going at for housing, so that we're talking based in real numbers on some of these things.
Yeah, and even with that, we all keep an eye on the market, see what's out there concerning housing. I think, as you heard Commissioner Maliga and others talk about, some of the housing rates are going up, and I'm constantly looking personally, as you know, as a new to the community and looking for housing, and it's amazing. So we're getting real data based on our real life experiences as well.
Yep, that helps. And we may want to develop some sort of an informal group of reaching out to some of the longtime realtors in the community as a way of gathering some of that data, at least informally.
Right. I think the key thing, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, I interrupted.
Keep in Palm Beach State College also as a potential source, and potentially for students that might be able to help as a student project on some of these things. Both are here, the college and FAU, as potential resources.
Right. So what I hear consensus is concerning the discussion on housing crisis is, of course, looking into the Miami information to see what they're doing, as well as working with the city attorney group to determine what does a declaration of crisis or emergency entails, and if that's possible.
And I think I heard, let's be as expeditious about it, and let's piggyback on available studies that can be modified for us if need be. Let's find a way to move forward, because it's pretty clear that you could come up with a range of criteria to define crisis, but I think we meet it.
Right. Well, I think also what needs to be determined, what can we do with what's within our power and ability and legally for us to do concerning the crisis. And I did hear that could be whatever information we find could be wrapped into how we decide on how to use our ARPA funds.
That and let's also not get too focused on the legal constraints. The state has put a number of constraints. Let's be focused on, are we at liberty to declare a crisis? What do we need to do that? Let's get that step done. That's a first step that opens the next ones, and then looks one at a time at the steps, rather than getting focused, well, we're not going to be able to do this. It is true that we need to inform the community that we have some limits on what we can do, but we want to make sure we're moving aggressively on the things that are within our control.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The other thing I had was just with the advisory boards. I just want to make sure that we are putting things on the agenda so that we can had the discussions, maybe one advisory board at a time. HRPB seems to be maybe more urgent than the recreation board, but like we need to, we talked a lot last night about what does the financial advisory board look like, revisiting HRPB and maybe even planning and zoning, as well as like the list of the makeup of the board, of how many from each subject area needs to be on each board. And so I think almost every board could use some attention to it in some way or another, for us to have like an opportunity to have some conversation with each other. I know the tree board had mentioned that they feel like they want to do more projects than actually give us recommendations. So, I'm just curious, out of all the boards that we have, how many of them are actually giving us recommendations to act on? Like we did get we directed the electric utility board to give us recommendations for conservation, and they did that, and that's great. And now we're gonna, direct them to help us work through this IRP, things of that nature. So I think I heard recommendations from the library board presented to us once on, these are the positions that we'd like you to fill. Since I've been here, I don't remember the tree board actually coming to us with any formal recommendations, or the recreation advisory board. So I want us to like look into how we can get the most use and make these boards the most productive. So we've mentioned shade trees every month. So does the tree board need more recommendation or more guidance from us? I know they were doing an initial study of kind of what is our tree canopy. Do we want to try to give them guidance to now, what are the shade tree programs that are out there in this country or even internationally? Like bring us back some ideas of what a program might look like for our city. So I just think that, I really value all of our citizens that want to come out and participate, but I want to make sure that we're reaping the benefits of their time. So I don't know how we want to pursue that. So we have two things. One is like definitely cleaning up any definition or extra conditions that we want to put, or the C51 canal that needs to be done. So I'd like a plan of like, what order are we going to tackle these boards in? Because we know we can't do it all at once at a regular city meeting. So should we do one on the third Tuesday of July and then do another one in August? I just think it's so easy for this stuff to get like slipped through the cracks if we don't, have a plan of tackling them. And then also the communication between the commission and the boards. How can we communicate to them as a body what we would like them to advise us on, and how can we make sure that they're communicating back to us? So
I was going to actually bring up the same thing and position it as a question, like what would be the next steps. I wouldn't mind, taking one or two of the boards and maybe working with city manager to come up with a definition and whatever wording we need to come up with the scope, especially for things like C51 and the finance advisory board. One thing I want to add, definitely second everything you just said, Commissioner Stokes, but I want to add also, I think it would be great for some of the boards to kind of rise up and have, a little bit more decision-making power, and to do a little bit more in their roles. But one thing I would love to consider, and I think is absolutely critical, is if the advisory board, whether it's like, library or C51 or tree, if they are also raising money or, taking a role on like applying for grants, for example, I would love to see some sort of mechanism. I think this is absolutely necessary, but some sort of mechanism or some sort of watch to make sure that any money that's going through these boards is being spent, appropriately and so on and so forth, and being done so mostly in a transparent way, so that people know what these boards are doing. Because I think all of these boards are going to be super critical in helping us do our job. But, you know, just like when we make decisions and do our job, there should be some transparency on things that are being done. So I would love to see, you know, I think it's absolutely necessary to have some sort of mechanism to keep an eye on it. I don't know exactly what that answer is right now, but it's something to consider.
One thought would be simply if a board has a budget, however it's done, that simply that budget be put online somewhere or other, so that, you know, people can look at it when you put money in, when you take money out, and there's a accounting of, we use this to buy more trees or whatever.
Yeah.
That
It
that
is
would
in
be-
Robert's rules that, you know, there is a treasurer, obviously, so there should be a treasurer's report. So maybe we come up with like some sort of standardized treasurer's report for all the boards that have available.
I don't believe that the advisory boards have a budget. Their goal is to just advise and meet. They don't have a budget or expenditure power.
It's mixed. The tree board, for instance, I believe does have funds. The library board also has funds, to my knowledge, or at least is related to them. I don't know if they're directly under their control, but
The library itself has funds. I don't know, Carmen, you have your hand up. Maybe you have insight.
Well, I wasn't going to speak on this, but I would defer, see if Andre has some insight on the funding. It's my understanding that many of them do not have any funding to those boards or spending authority. Andre, can you clarify that for us?
Yeah, not all of them have a budget. There's a library fund where there were contributions made, I think some time ago. So there's a budget for that, but it's not something for the board itself to expend. With respect to the other boards, like finance, the Financial Advisory Board and other ones, they don't take action which require an expenditure of funds. They, as the name implies, they just provide advice on whatever information is provided, that's presented to them, and make recommendations.
Right, and I think, William, with the historic board, they may make some decisions concerning abatements or something to that effect.
Yes, the Historic Preservation Board makes an initial recommendation as to whether an historic ad valorem property tax freeze is appropriate for a project. Then they reaffirm whether the intent of that request is met once the project is finished, and a recommendation is then sent to the City Commission for ratification on that tax abatement of up to 10 years. The Preservation Board can also impose some penalties and fees on work being done without certificates of appropriateness, but that is collected and goes to code compliance. And that just jumps into the general fund. As for the tree board, there is a tree restoration fund that I believe we only have one staff person part-time that deals with the tree board, but they do utilize that money to do tree giveaways and plant trees in the city and other activities. And as you recall from the Gulfstream discussion, there is a potential that there will be tree fund restoration money going into that fund for the loss of trees. As for a tree canopy survey, there has not been one. There was one done a long time ago, and then I think Gene and Francis kind of nullified it because the city lost so much tree canopy due to those two hurricanes, and we have not had an opportunity to update that. And that was one of the goals, to be named a Tree City USA and to have a tree canopy survey as well as a plan that will require an outside consultant to undertake that. West Palm Beach is just finishing up theirs.
I seem to recall that we did one more recently than Gene and Francis. And it was an outside consultant. Maybe I'm getting old and senile, it's just possible. But I'm pretty sure that we did it more recently than that.
We had a partial one done that sort of demonstrated how much tree canopy we lost, but we don't actually have, I don't believe, a categorization and itemization of all the trees that are on city property or on city rights of way, what their species is, how large they are, their tree condition, that sort of thing. And that's really what we sort of need, because if we're going to try to encourage tree canopy preservation, restoration, and growth, then we need to know in some ways what is the condition of current trees and what is the schedule to replace those so that we don't lose canopy over time as those trees come to their end of their life or are not healthy and have to be removed.
Mr. Vice Mayor,
Yes,
uh, my hand was up just to talk more while William is in line and talking. I do want to point out, as a result of our meeting concerning advisory boards related to the historic board, as you recall, I think you all appointed a total of 5, which is a 7-member board. And I mentioned last night that my concern is that we are too short and could be vital to the operation of that board's function. So I just wanted to say that because I know William may have some insight as to the attendance. Of course, the attendance requirement of those 5 will be necessary to, oh, I know, I think you said there was 4 out of 7, but it's still at a very fragile level of members. So I just want to make sure we move forward very quickly on filling all 7 seats.
Yes, the
And I know-
Preservation Board can't conduct business without at least 4 members present.
Right.
right. And I think, is there consensus among those of us here that we should move quickly to re-advertise for the boards that still need members and get that
That would be-
process?
That would be my
Yes.
recommendation for sure.
Yes. And then I think the HRPB's roles, its purpose is clear. We still have some questions about the makeup of the board, but I think that is okay for now. As far as the Financial Advisory Board and the C51 board, I'm just curious what positions we're trying to fill before. I want to fill critical roles as soon as possible, but if we haven't had the time to come together with what we want the Financial Advisory Board to do or the C51 Canal Board to do, I don't see the point of having a second round of interviews for those 2 boards.
That's very good point. Can we get consensus then that let's have and keep it to a limited number of boards? HRPB, we need to revisit the qualifications, and that clearly needs to be done before we re-advertise.
Before we go down that road, our qualifications come directly from the National Park Service and the Certified Local Government program. If we change the makeup and reduce the number of professional fields represented, we will lose our CLG status and we will not be a professional preservation program.
Thank you. I had asked that question, maybe you weren't there, William, when I asked it, if those rules came from the city commission or if they came from some other power that we had no control over.
Came from the National Park Service. And then when the ordinances were redone and the 2 boards, planning and zoning and historic preservation, were split, we carried over some of the professional disciplines in the planning and zoning board because that board makes quasi-judicial decisions as well as recommendations to the city commission. It seemed appropriate that the planning and zoning board should also have a minimum representation from certain professional fields that understand construction, development, economics, and planning. And so they're not exactly the same, but they are very similar.
And just to be clear, William, the requirement for HRPB includes fields of banking, land development, real estate, and I forget 1 or 2 more. That
Yes.
comes directly from the national level?
Yes.
Those
Keep in mind that decisions on preservation, they're trying, as long as it's been in existence, is to have a broad array of talent on a board who can understand the various aspects of making decisions that affect people's property. There are economics and banking or monies involved. There is construction interest involved. There's architecture, there's history. And so in designating the preferred professional disciplines being represented, they try to get as a broad array as possible on the board so that if an issue comes up, there is somebody besides staff who may bring some expertise to the question.
Could you send us the relevant language to the commission that and just so that we have some idea, do we have any latitude on that? Do we have no latitude? So that informs us before we look at this.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
I foresee, I've been nominated at PZB boards before, and especially like at the county, for example. PZB in the historic, I don't see a whole lot of drastic changes being done to those in terms of their scope and their makeup, because they're pretty standard, I think, across the board and what they do, and it's a familiar position, if you will. For the others, are we suggesting, we opening up the applications for the ones that we need quorum immediately? But for example, C51 and Finance Advisory, we'll open those up after we redefine them. Is that the
I
suggestion?
think only makes sense that
Okay.
we sort that out first.
Right,
Yeah.
and if we're, I don't know that the recreation board has enough people, and I don't know, I haven't heard from them at all since I've been elected. But if we think that they're good the way they are, then we can re-advertise for that one. What's up, Sarah? Commissioner Malega.
I think that there's like 5 openings. I don't have it in front of me, but I think the rec board's in dire need.
Oh, I mean, if we think that their function and their role and everything is good the way it is, then we can re-advertise that.
Yeah, I think that we just need to re-advertise it.
Yeah.
We might want to, as a commission, look at least quickly at it. I hear a lot from young families in the community that they often go outside of Lake Worth for activities for their kids and have raised concerns about what we have. So I think we might look and see, well, can we get, bring those two things together? Families that are looking for maybe more creative or more range of types of activities, make sure that our rec board mission is best set to be able to address some of those concerns.
Chris, I hear you, but I think the big thing is then communication, because we have Club Create, we have PALS, we have basketball, we have soccer, we have football, we have cheerleading. I mean, there's a million things in this city for kids to do.
I would just keep us on track here. Sorry, overstep, but
12 minutes.
yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe it's the communication. Maybe we just need to be able to get to those families, because there is literally, there's a million things in the city for kids to do.
I think for advertising the board, I don't think we have to try to like reimagine what the board's purpose or all the stuff is like we do with the C51 canal, but I would like, and I think this is why it's nice to look at a bunch of candidates at once, and as a whole, what do we want that board's makeup to look like? So HRPB, we don't want 7 realtors on that board, right? We don't want 7 teachers on that board. We want a diversity of professional opinions. I think it would be really nice if we could be targeted or somehow figure out how to reach different pockets of the community, because I think in Boynton Beach, I looked at them, I think they have a senior advisory board just for senior citizens. And I think it would be nice to have somebody who is active as a senior in our community that can try to bring a voice to like, what kind of activities do they want? Yes, we should have mothers. We shouldn't have 7 mothers. We should have seniors. We don't need 7 seniors. Like if it's a board for the recreation for the whole city, to me, the diversity of background of the board is going to help make sure that we are kind of hitting those. And that's the job of the board, is to kind of look at those things.
I agree with you, Kim. I mean, we have the Jazzy Seniors Club, which is very active, and perhaps we can encourage some of them to apply to the rec board.
Yeah.
Because they actually dictate, here's a list of what we want to do this year. And they give that to the leisure services, and then they figure out what fits in the budget. So to get one of those women or men who have been on that board for a couple of years, in the Jazzy Seniors group, I should call it, on the board, we just need to encourage them.
Yeah, I'm going to channel slightly different. I'm going to channel Herman Robinson and say, can we make a commitment to call it the Water Resources Board or something like that, and get away from C51?
That's the plan. Maybe not water resources, but it's certainly the plan, because the focus is going to be our public assets, our properties, our parks that are waterfront, lagoon front, and canal front. So, but yeah, that's part of the plan.
Let's move a better name that's more
Yeah.
descriptive of.
For sure. I guess I get the last 9 minutes. Cons of being the new guy. Besides, yeah, I mean, I was going to bring up the advisory boards thing as well. I guess I have only 2 other things. Thank you, Commissioner Malega, for bringing up the cigarette thing. Smoking at the cystic fibrosis event, first of all, is just painfully ironic. But it is, that's clearly one of the more, cigarette butts are definitely one of the more common litter items that we find in our maintenance days. And I guess I'll point out, and this will depend on, I haven't seen the state legislation yet, but I guess depending on what is defined as the beach, the physical area, I think another enforcement possibility would be our parking enforcement people. If the beach also happens to include the parking lot and public areas like the sidewalk and whatnot. Related to that, I would like to invite, there's a nonprofit called the Beach Bucket Foundation. And if you go to Chrysler, they have a setup there. And basically what it is, they build these wood things that include a trash can, and the things have buckets, and the buckets are sponsored. Like local businesses can get their stickers on the buckets. And essentially it just encourages people to grab a bucket, clean up some trash from the beach, and, kind of take pride in the property and in the park.
We have some at the beach. Are they still there?
They're at Chrysler. So they're on the county side. And last time I spoke with the head of Beach Bucket, he pointed out that there isn't one on Lake Worth, on the Lake Worth side. So if there isn't, we should definitely look into that, invite them to present. It's inexpensive. Last I talked to him, depending on the size of the thing that we want or how many, it's like in the hundreds of dollars a year. It's not anything astronomical. The first thought that I always thought of was, well, if we put buckets out in public and in Lake Worth, they're just going to get stolen by fishermen. And he pointed out something that really stood out to me, and that's the one at Chrysler is the only one that they've put out that hasn't had one stolen. So I think we have a good community that would support it and leave the buckets and use them appropriately. So that would be something that I think that we can coincide with.
Lauren, are you on the call? Lauren Bennett.
Present.
Yeah.
Can you advise to this?
Yeah, we actually looked into this a few years ago because as staff, we were constantly evaluating ways we could get more help in cleaning up the beach on a daily process. Originally, legal wasn't too fond of it due to liability purposes, but that doesn't mean we can't revisit it now that it's becoming a little bit more popular and see if we can get that set up on our beaches. But from a staff perspective, the more help is always welcome.
Yeah, I forget, maybe somebody from that or a resident mentioned it, and I had some contact with them a while back also. And it seemed like a good group and a good approach. So I'm all for us looking into that and making, if at all possible, let's get it going. I'd also like to see more recycling receptacles. There's an awful lot of plastic water bottles that show up in the garbage at the beach. I'd like us to have recycle containers. I've had some discussions with our recycling coordinator, and there is contamination, but I think we ought to try it. Especially, the bottles is easy because you put a container that has a small round opening, and I think a lot of the time it'll just get bottles.
Yeah, I would like to avoid the containers that have both, and like one side is for recyclables and the other is not. Because I watched, I think they had them in Massachusetts, and I watched everybody walk by and just throw their garbage in whatever side. They're not stopping to read, this half is recycle, this half is garbage.
I agree. Keep separate, and let's try it out and see how the contamination goes.
Yeah, at Bryant Park, after some people destroyed our poor little manatee. When the recycling bin did go up there, and obviously I spend a lot of time on that shoreline. I do see a notice of people doing better, except I will point out last Sunday, we were doing our maintenance on the planters at Bryant Park, and we're clearly there working on the planters. We have our tools, our buckets and all that. And somebody was walking pretty much right in front of us. And as we're walking up to the next planter, he picked up a plastic bottle off of the ground and chucked it right into the lagoon. So I think, you had mentioned
I just have a question. Did you want to chuck him into the lagoon? Because I probably would have had to been like,
I had a shovel, let's put it that way. Because I was planting mangroves, so I had a shovel. But I think the efficacy in that regard, Commissioner Stokes had a great point. Like a simple sign, often, especially a sign that isn't just like a standard government, like yellow and brown sign, like a nice, beautiful, artistic sign. I think it can go a long way, and I think that is kind of what's missing, especially from like the planters at Bryant Park. To the untrained eye, maybe it just looks like a bunch of plants that somebody planted on the wall. But maybe if there was like an interpretive sign, something explaining it, so that people can take pride in these projects and want to take care of the water in the lagoon, I think that would go a long way. So something to think about. The advisory boards was the other thing I was going to bring up. And the other thing I was going to bring up, and I had this conversation with city manager already, is, Lauren, hear you loud and clear about the more that we can have other groups and people help staff on doing things like cleanups and events and whatnot. That is obviously great and what we want to encourage. And I'm pretty sure Mayor said that at our last pre-agenda meeting, I think or the one that was before Juneteenth, it was brought up, who's doing events for Juneteenth. And I think Mayor brought up a good point that it's not necessarily the city because we don't have the staff, but there are a lot of nonprofits and organizations that can bring events to Lake Worth Beach that we should, encourage and whatnot. And to that regard, that same day, we had an issue, and it's almost painful to bring this up, but one of the nonprofits I run and started, we were planning a movie screening in particular, and I think there is room for improvement on how we handle. I don't know what the exact answer is, but there's got to be room for improvement on, the application process, because it costs me staff payroll to apply to an extensive application. And then we come back with tremendous sticker shock on the fees
Whoops, it just locked up for some reason. Are we all still here?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Ronaldo locked up for some reason. I'll follow up because I've had not quite the same experience, but I've had the same concern. So this would be a directive from, and others chime in if you agree, but a directive to the city manager that let's bring forward to the commission by email, if not at a formal meeting, either way, what are our current policies for use of the public areas, public parks? Let's have a chance to do them, because I've had a number of people raise the issue that the sticker shock, the level of bureaucracy to do events. Let's look at that, because I think there's a lot of feeling on this commission that we want to encourage events and we want to reduce the bars to doing it. We understand there are liability issues, there are staffing issues, but let's, as a policy board, review that and see if we can't streamline it somewhat.
I'm in support of that, as long as we are not losing money. We have to be able to recoup our cost for setup and staff time. I'm all in favor of charging non-residents, double what a resident has to pay. I believe that our residents should have access first. I just wanted to throw out one more thing because Commissioner Diaz did get cut off. Suits for Seniors reached out to me and they have an abundance of middle-aged kids who need volunteer hours this summer. So anybody who has projects, please reach out to Javante at Suits for Seniors. He has 13 to 16-year-olds that need to get volunteer hours.
Is that what we call middle-aged kids now?
Middle school aged kids, that's what he called them. Middle school age. And I'm like, what age is that? He's like, I guess 13 to 16. I'm like, all right, we'll try to find them some stuff to do.
All right, thank you. Well, I believe we are at 10:01. Any quick last things that anybody wants to bring up?
Yeah, just to finish my thought now that my internet is working back again. Yeah, and I mean, improve and streamline to encourage use, but also with the priority of let's not burden staff any more than they already are. I think if we were to streamline and make, whatever the answer is to improving the process to getting more people to use our public spaces, having more events, the other priority that goes hand in hand with that, let's not make it too burdensome for our staff, because they do a lot, and they've been doing tremendous work with Street Painting Festival and all that, and we want more of it, but we don't want to work them to the bone doing it. So
thank you, Ronaldo. I think it would be good for all of us, like Commissioner Vice Mayor McFoy said, as you cut out, if we can get staff to send us what is our current policy, and then we just to start looking at it. And I have a feeling that most of this is being driven not by the director of leisure services, but by our pesky legal team. But as we've seen before, with the talk about the buckets, something that they thought was too much of a liability before turns out not to be. So I think it's definitely worth revisiting this and seeing what other towns and cities are doing to make sure that we're not jeopardizing ourselves legally, but also, I think I think we're all in agreement. It's definitely worth revisiting.
yeah,
Yep.
for sure. Would love to hear from, not just Leisure Services Director Lauren, but like all departments really, like what's the wish list, especially now, as we go through the budget workshops, what is it that our departments wish for to make their job easier and more effective?
All right. Well, thank you all. I'd like us maybe for our next several pre-agenda meetings, let's all be thinking of what are our policies that each of us sees as important and things that we really want the city to move forward on. I think we all are quite conscious that we were elected to try to bring some change to what had happened for about 10 years. And let's make sure that we are explicitly and in a timely fashion trying to bring forward whatever those things are. So let's be thinking of that for the next pre-agenda meetings and help get some of that moving. And with that, I think we are to the end of our meeting.
Motion to adjourn? Do we need that?
We don't need one, but thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Great.
See you guys tonight at FDOT and tomorrow night for District 1 City Commission in the field, we'll call it, I guess.
Forum.
District One
Yeah.
Public
Definitely
Forum.
not a meeting forum.
Public forum, yes.
Yeah.
Bring your patience and lots